Imagine being me, minding my Black business, waking up to find that Taylor Swift has once again derailed my plans. Hello and welcome to Queen Things. I'm your host, KJ Miller, founder, lecturer, content creator, Taylor Swift fan, and apparently defender. Because this woman remains a menace to society. Definitely was not planning on talking about her today. Well, that's not true. I had plans to talk about her a little bit, but really I was going to do a nice, clean, smooth pop culture rundown for today's episode. Woke up, what do I see? Taylor Swift is all over the internet. Why? Because her text messages have been released. Her text messages to Blake Lively. I haven't even actually seen their two names together side by side in so long, but here they are texting each other. The texts have been released, and obviously I read every single one. And now, obviously, we have to talk about it. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to dive in, and I'm going to do what so few people on the internet seem to be willing to do, which is put these text messages in context. Okay. People are just like pulling out one text here, one text there, acting like there isn't an entire narrative that hasn't already played out in hundreds and hundreds of pages of legal documents. Like, people are just, it's actually really frying me because like, please, let's just act like we have some sense. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read these text messages, all of them in full, but put them in context of this broader case, because I think that's what we need to do to then ask ourselves the question, what do we make of this? And that's a question I'm going to attempt to answer, but I don't want to try and make something of it until I have all of the context. So that's what I'm going to do. That's what we're going to do. And then if there's time at the end, we'll get into a few of the pop culture tidbits. And if there's even more time at the end, I will be bringing back white news, because the whites are whiting. Okay, let's get to it. And before we jump in, a couple announcements. First of all, don't forget to sign up for the Patreon, because I still am going to do my Olivia Dean review. And I've been talking about it for weeks. It is going to happen. In fact, I believe I'm going to do it this weekend, which means it'll be live next week. So join the Patreon in order to get that episode and all of the bonus episodes. There are many, many of them now. And another announcement, our survey is still live. It'll be live till the end of the month. I want to hear from you. I want to know about you. So fill out the survey. And now let's get to these text messages. Okay, so let's dive into these text messages. We get our first batch of text messages between Taylor and Blake in April 2023. That date is important because it is about a month before filming begins on It Ends With Us. Okay, so we are about 1 month before filming begins. Now, they're already deep into pre-production at this point, and we know this because, first of all, it takes many months of pre-production before you start filming a film, but also because of what's said in the text exchanges. By this point, Blake has read the script. She has revised the script. She's talked about the revisions she's made to the script with him. She's talked about the things that she's been working on. Okay, so this is a month before filming begins. Then a year passes before we get the next batch of text messages. And to be clear, I'm not saying they didn't talk for a year. It's just, for whatever reason, the subpoena then jumps to text messages from a year later, which is April 2024. This would have been, I believe, around the time filming was wrapping up, because filming wrapped up in early 2024. And then we get our final batch of text messages in December of 2024. This is right when, around the time when Blake's article in the New York Times was coming out and the allegations against Justin Baldoni were coming out. Okay. So those are when we see these text messages. I think the next question someone would have is, why are we seeing these text messages, right? Like, Blake and Taylor are homegirls. Taylor did not officially work on this film other than having her song on the soundtrack, which, as she herself pointed out, many other artists did as well. So like, why are these text messages material? And the reason why, I believe, and I'm not a lawyer, okay? So please just let that be said at the top. I am not a lawyer. But what I believe is that these text messages were subpoenaed because they go to supporting Baldoni's narrative. His narrative, and the case he's making, is that he never sexually harassed Blake Lively and therefore couldn't have retaliated against the sexual harassment claims, because the only reason she even made those claims was because she was upset at not getting her way as it relates to all the things she wanted to do on the film. All of the direction choices, all of the scripting choices, the wardrobe choices, so on and so forth. When he stood up to her and said no, because we know he often said yes, that's when she got upset. that's when the allegations of sexual harassment came. And so his narrative relies on providing proof that that's what was going on. What was going on was she was trying to take control of the film. So he's going to be subpoenaing, is that how you say that word? Subpoenaing? Anybody who can potentially add color to that narrative. And Taylor Swift counts because Blake Lively was talking about these exchanges with him to her. Now, how he knows that, I guess because of that meeting that took place at the apartment, I guess like from there, he ascertained or intuited that she definitely was bringing her in on these conversations about the film. And to him, that's material. That's why he included it. And it wasn't just text messages with her. We see text messages and emails between Blake Lively and Ben Affleck, Matt Damon and his wife, a couple other people as well, Ryan Reynolds. But for this show, we're going to focus on the text between Taylor and Blake. So now that we know when these texts are taking place and we know why we now have access to them, let's dive in and start reading them. And then I'm going to sort of give you my take, and I'm going to intersplice my take probably throughout, but I do want to give you a full picture here. All right, so let's start with the text messages sent on April 12th, 2023. In this crop of text messages, Blake is asking Taylor to come to her apartment because Justin Baldoni is there. And she wants Taylor basically to have her back on saying like, listen, the rewrites that I did, the work that I did on the script is really good. And remember, we're a month out from beginning to film at this point, okay? So Blake says, if you get here with this doofus director of my movie is still here, I'll be ushering him out, but hope he's still here. Can you do me a huge favor? I need help with him. Can you tell him you're excited for the movie, that you read the book, but what you're freaking out over is the pages I sent you. What a magnetic scene that is, or whatever descriptives you're comfortable with. I'll send you the scene. You don't have to read, of course. It's a quick read. He's a clown and thinks he's a writer now and got this rewrite and told me he appreciates my passion. That's it. So having the greatest living storyteller unknowingly echo to him how much you love what we're doing, giving him credit as if he wrote them with me, will go such a long way. Then she says, and I don't know what movie she's referring to here. Blake says, you dug a movie out of a grave once already for me, and put like a heart emoji. All right, so then Taylor responds, I'll do anything for you. Blake says, I love you, thank you. Text me when you're on your way. I'll have Molly meet you in security and garage. Taylor says, headed your way. I'm on your street. Blake says, see you soon. Sophia headed down now. Okay, great. That's the first exchange. So what do we learn there? We learn that Blake is very directly asking Taylor to have her back in a conversation with Justin about the script changes that she just made. It sounds to me, and I believe she had made changes to a particular scene, not like the entire script, and she wanted Justin's feedback on that scene. It may have even been that infamous rooftop scene. They don't talk about it here. But the point is, she is very specifically asking her friend Taylor to have her back. And she knows that it's going to mean something coming from Taylor because Taylor is critically acclaimed. She is a fantastic songwriter, best-selling artist of all time. Like, obviously, she's a big deal. And so having her say, hey, I really love the script. I love what you guys have done. It's going to go a long way. Blake knows that. Taylor knows that, right? She agrees. Oh, you want me to do this? I'll do anything for you. Okay. So that's that. Now we fast forward to later on that evening. Blake texts her and says, you were so epically heroic today. I recapped every moment to Ryan. I kept remembering stuff. You making shit up about me and lenses and referring to yourself as my doll. This clown falling for all of it, but also resisting it. You are the world's absolute greatest friend ever. I won the lottery. Taylor replies, I won the lottery in all caps. You are the coolest person in the world and you like me. We'll get back to that. Blake replies with an emoji of Aladdin. Okay. Then says, the most bonkers part to me is him saying to you he doesn't know pop culture. Made me more mad than anything he's done to me. Blake continues, his entire brand is disassembling toxic masculinity. He monetizes it. He does TED Talks, but says that to you? Not only is it so rude, but it's untrue. The thing that enraged me is you are in an absolute league of your own in being both the most popular artist alive and one of all time, but also the most respected and awarded. Popularity doesn't normally coincide with laurels. In very few cases, it does. Steven Spielberg, for example, there's one. Do you think for a moment he would have felt comfortable saying that to him, even if he didn't know his work? You would never make a point to say to Steven Spielberg about his work that you don't know it because you don't know pop culture. She continues, and this is one thing I'll just say about Ms. Blake. She is verbose, honey. I remember thinking that reading the last case and the messages and the voice memos going back between her and Justin Baldoni. Oh, Miss Ma'am has a lot of words to use, and she is going to use them. She continues. I've been raging ever since, even though I know it all comes from what you said perfectly. He just so wants to be in the room, but has to act like he doesn't. I see it. I understand that it's opposite day with him. He's so green, he thinks that what makes him cool enough to fit in, when in fact it's fucking enthusiasm, fandom, and respect for those killing it that shows you're confident with where you are in life. She continues. I've also been raging at the NYU thing. I don't know, maybe he said something about NYU. I honestly want to retroactively take you out to dinner to celebrate that. You deserve to be studied. You are a human masterclass. Fuck yes, they see it. I've been digging up hatchets. I'll stop now. I love you and my babies and get more protective about your hearts than mine sometimes. I'm so much less forgiving when it comes to someone messing with someone I love than when someone messes with me. I'm done. I just love you and I'm so ecstatic for you and grateful to you for today. That was stupid fun. Okay. Girl. No one is ever going to accuse Blake Lively of being short on words. Oh, she has words for days. All right. So what's happening here? Listen, I'm gonna say it to you how I'm seeing it. How I'm seeing it is Blake asked her homegirl to come do her a favor because there is a man who is basically trying to put her down and making her feel small. And she's like, yo, to my homegirl, come through, put this man in his place. That is one way to interpret all of this. And I think probably the way most of us would interpret it if we weren't talking about Blake Lively and Taylor Swift in the fairly obvious power imbalance as it relates to their fame relative to Justin Baldoni. Now, it is not just purely a power imbalance in their favor, given that he is the boss of this movie. He is the director. He is the producer. So he is, in fact, Blake Lively's boss. However, when it comes to fame, when it comes to influence, when it comes to popularity, obviously Blake and Taylor have it on him, right? And so I think because of that, because we all know that when we read this exchange, we're not just going to see it as, oh, somebody felt belittled by a man and asked her homegirl to come through and have her back. That is, in some ways, what happened. But it's not going to read like that because we know who they are. We know who all of these players are. To me, I still think there is room for that interpretation. And I guess it's because, like, speaking for myself, I've been in plenty of situations where a man is discounting me and my knowledge despite how much I've accomplished. No, I'm no Taylor Swift, but I'm not bad. All right. I've got a couple of Harvard degrees. I've raised $9 million in venture capital funding. I built a multi-million-dollar business. I have 350,000 followers. Like, I've done some things is what I'm trying to say. Yet and still, there are still men out there who, when in a room with me, will go out of their way to try and make me feel smaller and try to belittle my accomplishments. And so I can relate to the idea that if that were happening to you while you were trying to impress somebody and trying to do something that you consider to be a skill of yours, clearly Blake considers script writing to be a skill of hers. I don't know if it is or isn't. That's not what I'm here to talk about. It's something that she cares about. If you felt like you were being belittled in that, and you had a homegirl who could come through and have your back and like speak to how great you are and your accomplishments, you might want to do it too. And so I still think there's room for that interpretation without it just being like, this is just pure mean girl shit, which is how I think a lot of people are interpreting this. I see that interpretation too. We cannot forget she is Blake Lively and Taylor is Taylor. And so there is that, again, fame, power, and balance. We can't forget that. We can't pretend like it doesn't exist. But I still think there's room for this interpretation of this was somebody calling her homegirl saying, I want you to have my back. Now let's keep reading. So we are now jumping ahead a full year to April 2024. Filming has, I believe, wrapped by this point. Blake texts Taylor this. I've finally gotten to get in the edit. Alone. No Justin. I'm going to make this movie great, successful if it's the last thing I do. They sent me a trailer. I'd love to know what you think. I can change it. I'm just curious your reaction as someone who knows pop culture better than anyone, and also as someone who's read this book. Don't be thrown by your song. They went out on a limb and kept it, which is cheating because it imbues everything with such gravity and quality. I'm torn. Obviously, your feelings decided, but if you were open to it, on one hand, fuck them forever. On the other, I want this movie to work, and your song hits a main artery. Song variable aside, would love to know what you think. Please show Trav too. Would love his opinion also. Okay, basically, this is Blake showing her the trailer. The trailer uses her song, My Tears Ricochet, and saying, hey, I want to get your eyes on this. I want to know what you think. This is their edit, but I can change it. Okay, that's what's happening here. And this to me, like, yes, she's saying fuck these guys, whatever, but I don't think there's anything all that salacious here other than her saying, hey, I want to get your feedback on this trailer, which given that they are using her song, I don't know. I feel like that's kind of fair game, but okay, that's what's going on there. So the text I just read from Blake to Taylor was from April 23rd, the one in which she says like, hey, look at the trailer. What do you think? They use your song, blah, blah, blah. All right. April 26th, 2024. Taylor starts off with, I'm so sorry. I was in a daze and didn't see the first text. Wow. I love how they use the song. Oh, this is her replying because she didn't see the one on the 23rd. It's all making sense. We're on this ride together. Okay, fine. She didn't see that text. Okay, then she replies, welcome to Hollywood, Justin. And I guess sends an attachment of some kind of meme, some kind of something. It's just a long link here. I don't know what that is. Obviously, it makes Blake laugh because she replies, I'm not okay. I can't breathe. I'm obsessed with you. I have never felt more like Khaleesi. I have dragons. Now, that is important. That is important because I sort of assumed when she referred to herself as Khaleesi in texting with Justin Baldoni and referred to Taylor as her dragon, I was like, dang, if I were Taylor, I would be offended by that. But no, because she said it to her face. And if it's one thing I'll say about Blake Lively, she's a real one. Everything she said to him, she said to her. Let's continue. I've never felt more like Khaleesi. I have dragons. And then she says, except my dragons are bred with Cersei herself. Now that I do have to wonder, has she seen Game of Thrones? Cersei, why would you say that your dragon, referring to Taylor as a dragon, say that Taylor was bred with Cersei? Cersei was having sex with her brother in order to breed her children. I'm not sure she's seen the series. Certainly don't think she's read the book. Anyway, I'm not trying to shade her intelligence. I'm just saying, as she states in this very lawsuit, she prefers to see the work over reading the work. Continuing here, Taylor replies, I'm just picturing you muttering Dracarys, and then I fire off those texts to Austin. Then Taylor says, by the way, if Justin was strategic, he would be like, no Taylor Swift in the trailer, because that gives you more power over the film. That's your ally, not his. Blake responds, get yourself a best friend who thinks like the actual Roman Empire. Taylor then says his misogyny runs so deep, he thinks women are incapable of winning chess matches or making long game power plays. To which Blake replies, you are so right and so wickedly smart to call it. He should have run from your music. I never thought about that. But holy shit, how stupid. This was his only shot at having the appearance of an upper hand. Well, that's April 26th. So she does reply, and she replies saying, them including my song is a good move for you. And if he were smart, if he were strategic, he wouldn't have included it, because obviously I'm your ally, not his. But he's essentially admitting he needs your help, your friends, your connects to make this movie into what it should be. And I'll tell you what, I don't think she's wrong. I don't think she's wrong. In fact, I think she's right. I think this is a moment, Taylor, let me say one thing about Taylor. She knows who she is. She knows who the fuck she is. Not one time in all of these times that Blake is sending all of this, like, just overly effusive, like, you're so amazing, the greatest of all time, this, that, and the third. Not one time does Taylor try to brush it aside and say, like, oh, please, oh, you're too kind, blah, blah, blah. No. I am that. Okay. She doesn't even acknowledge it because she knows it to be true. And I like that personally. Some people wouldn't. I like a woman who knows who she is and isn't trying to downplay herself. But also, I think she's right here. I do think this was not a smart strategic move on Baldoni's part, because clearly at this point, we are in April of 2024. All the craziness has happened that allegedly happened on set. The sexual harassment, the all hands meeting to address the harassment, the letter with all the demands that was signed by Wayfarer outlining all the things he would no longer do. All of this has gone down. Now they're in the mode of like editing the movie and looking at the dailies and blah, 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 blah. And his edit, including Taylor's music, which obviously Blake asked her for, like she did it as a favor to Blake Lively, her bestie. Him deciding to include the song, not just in the movie, but in the trailer, I think is an admission like, yes, we do need your network, your help, the things you have done to help get this film out and make it successful. I think she's right about that. All right, so let's continue. Now Blake says, we are in May of 2024. Blake says, by the way, I have so much to tell you. The author, Colleen, reached out to me because Justin is on an internal smear campaign trying to get his edit through. She was horrified and reached out on her own to talk to me. Turns out he fucking lied. She's not Baha'i. Never has been. She's not friends with him at all. She actually hates him. She was his safety net all along. Meanwhile, he shut her out and wouldn't include her in anything and told her she had no voice or value, yet paraded her around in front of cameras for goodwill and told us all that all his decisions he got pushback on were her ideas. Wild. She flew to New York where I screened my cut for the first time yesterday. It killed in the room. Blake continues, Bradley came. He watched it twice. He has been an absolute fucking hero. He has made me feel so good about the cut. Matt and Lucy Damon saw it to give notes and instead just wrote Tom Rothman to try to push my edit through without a bake-off with Justin, which is also what Colleen is pushing for. It's wild and crazy times. Then Taylor responds, no one should ever get into a war of wills with you, and I'm so excited to see it. Blake says, anytime, if you have free time, I'll send it to you. It's actually a fun watch now. Now that is really just an interesting thing to say about a movie that's about domestic violence. It's actually a fun watch now. Is it? I didn't watch it. I truly had no desire to see this film. Nothing about it felt like it'd be a film I personally would enjoy. But the people who did see it, almost universally what I heard is that it was not a fun watch. Like it is chiefly about domestic violence. And like breaking the cycle, which is why it's called It Ends With Us, feels heavy to me. But she says it's actually a fun watch now. Interesting. And I will just note, she's talking about the Bake Off. If you want more context on the Bake Off, you can go read her other exchanges because she talks about it explicitly. She and her husband are on a email thread with Matt Damon and Lucy Damon. I did read the whole thread where she explains that like Justin finished his edit. He had several months to work on it. They then gave her 10 days to work on her edit. And then they were going to do a bake-off like screening. And she asked Matt Damon and Lucy Damon to watch it and to like give her feedback. She asked the same thing of Ben Affleck, give her feedback. She was trying to get as much feedback from people she trusted as possible because she didn't have that long before going into this bake-off. But then I guess, according to this, what she says to Taylor is Matt and Lucy Damon saw it. And they just wrote to Tom Rothman, I'm assuming that's a higher up at Sony, to try to push my edit through without a bake off with Justin. So, clearly they had her back. Fine. So that is May 2024. All right. And now we get to the longer text messages. And if you are thinking to yourself, how could these text messages get longer? I assure you they can. So we are now fast forwarding to December 4th, 2024. So what has happened in between May 2024 and December 2024? Namely, the film has come out. Right? The film came out in August 2024, and the film does well, grosses a lot of money. It's a box office hit. However, a lot of the chatter during the film's release is about Blake Lively and how she's tone deaf, and how, all of her interactions with the press and in interviews were terrible, and how she was marketing it to be about flowers and booze. And you all remember, you were there. Okay. You recall. So yes, the movie comes out. Yes, it's a hit, but also Blake is being dragged through the mud hither and thither. Whether you thought it was right or not, that is in fact what was going on. Now we're here in December. Importantly, we're here on December 4th. The article that drops in the New York Times, the bombshell article that we all read, alleging the sexual harassment and retaliation, the "We Can Bury Anyone" article, that comes out late December. I believe it's December 20th or 21st. Okay. So we are right before, mere weeks before that bombshell article is about to drop, when we get these text messages between Blake and Taylor. Blake says, "Hey, just checking in. I have no reason to ask, but I don't know. I've been feeling like I should. Is everything okay? I felt like a bad friend lately because I was such a sad sack who only talked about my own shit for months. You were generous to not only be the key person there for me during all of it, but also to let me off the hook for being so in it. But I still have a feeling something may not be right. I told Ryan. He said to just ask you, but I felt so stupid and like it sounded nerdy and awkward for everyone, especially because I can't explain why I have this feeling. And I have toxic masculinity, so I can't be needy. But also, I do want to know everything is good. So I'm asking. I always want the opportunity to be a better friend if there's something I unintentionally did. I know how busy and taxed you are physically, emotionally, practically. So I don't expect any more from you ever. Just want to make sure all is good. Heart, heart, heart." Okay. I have had to zoom this in 1,000 times. I have an eye doctor appointment tomorrow. I already lost all my hair. Please, Lord, don't let me be losing my vision. Are we writing in ant type now? These PDFs, my God. I continue. Taylor says, "No, you're not wrong, but it's also not a big deal. I think I'm just exhausted in every avenue of my life, and in recent months have been feeling a little bit of a shift in the way you talk to me. Yes, there has been a lot of the Justin stuff, but I've been through things like this before, and I know how all-consuming it is. It's more like ... and I feel really bad saying anything about this because your texts have been so nice in their intent, but your last few, it's felt like I was reading a mass corporate email sent to 200 employees. You said the word "we" like 18 times, and it feels awful to be in any way critical of any way you process what you've been going through, but I just kind of miss my funny, dark, normal speaking friend who talks to me as herself, not like a plural unit. When it's a group I'm hearing from, I feel distance from you even more than we are geographically." There's some redactive stuff. Then, "And I know you feel attacked from all sides for ridiculous reasons, so you're feeling like you have to overly explain things or be overly nice or whatever, but it's me. That's just caused a little distance. And you don't need to apologize. Just come back, please. Prayer emoji hands." Okay. I think that is a nice exchange between friends. Can I just say, I know we're in the midst of talking about this as it relates to the lawsuit and sexual harassment and this, that, and the third. But again, this feels like two very good friends, two best friends having a real exchange with one another about how there is distance between them, being honest about it, trying to get to the bottom of it, and being willing to have the difficult conversation. Like, can we not admit that that's nice to see? I think it's nice to see. All right. Blake responds. "Dear valued customer, thank you for your feedback. We at headquarters are reviewing your concerns and will get back to you in a timely manner." Then she says, "For real though, you're right. I literally deleted the awful thing I was going to end that bit with because I've become digitally paranoid. I don't know if you experienced that with phone calls after what happened to you, but after the thousands of text messages that weren't meant for me that I've been reading, I've internalized that everything digital may be public. I say that knowing it's irrational, but my brain can't accept rationale there. So yeah, I've been texting like I'm writing, not like me talking. I didn't realize that until you pointed it out, but I see it. On top of that, I'm overpackaging simple things because I've felt so deeply misunderstood that I don't trust my judgment of myself anymore. That sounds over the top, but it's true. This fucking guy and what he did to me gave me an identity crisis, legitimately. The thing that spooked me most in all of this, though, wasn't the bad guys being bad guys. It was the good guys, my lifelong friends, allies to women who quietly dipped. And so I'm probably being over the top with my friends who stayed because I've never felt more alone. The track is very violin heavy. I hate it. Point is, I'm being a stupid paranoid weirdo and felt it, but didn't know where or how or when. So thank you for telling me and for saying I don't need to apologize and for not making it a big deal. But I am sorry to you. And I'm sorry to me and to our kids. Fuck that guy and fuck his whole gaggle of supervillains. You've got enough on you. You don't need to write back to all this. Just letting you know I see it now and thank you. I'm excited for you to be done with suitcases, constant sinus infections, and torn up kneecaps. So close. Your submission will be processed shortly. We thank you again for your patronage. Blake Inc. Taylor replies, first paragraph took me out. Blake says, if only I sent you the unplugged version. Ha ha ha. Well, she put a skull emoji. Then she says, I sent you a voice memo, but it doesn't show on our thread, which is really helping my case of not trusting phones. Did it go through? Taylor replies, yes, I'm just falling asleep, but we'll listen tomorrow. Love you. Blake says, it's the length of a mini series, sleep. Taylor replies, now we are into the next day. So all of that was happening, the night of December 5th. Now we're into the next day. In the afternoon, 3:15, Taylor says, I think this bitch knows something is coming because he's gotten out his tiny violin. Then she attaches the article, a People article, where Justin Baldoni reveals he was sexually traumatized by an ex-girlfriend when he was hoping to save myself for marriage. Now, I did read a little bit of this article, and basically the story he tells is that the girlfriend that he had in college basically like sexually abused him. He didn't want to have sex. He was trying to save himself, but I guess she like kind of forced herself on him and didn't take no for no. That's the story he recounts to People. And so I will say, with no added context, for Taylor to post that and then say, I think this bitch knows something is coming because he's gotten out his tiny violin, I'm laughing. But like, obviously sexual abuse is not funny. It is not funny. It's funny to see Taylor say, I think this bitch knows something. It's not, what am I trying to say here? Sexual abuse is not funny, all right? But did it make me laugh seeing Taylor say this bitch and, all that? Yes, it did. It did make me giggle. All right, now Blake replies to that and says, it rings different when he doesn't end the story by saying, did I always listen when they said no? No, like he did with me. But that must not have tested well in the focus group. So I think that's very important added context. Taylor presumably would have known that when he told this story to Blake, he ended it by saying, according to her, he also has ignored people saying no during sexual escapades and intercourse, right? So if that's the context with which someone is sharing a story about sexual abuse with you, you might be forgiven for being a bit more lighthearted about it or even a bit more cavalier about it, because if you're saying, oh, she abused me, but I abused other folks too, like, and you're kind of cavalier about it, it makes more sense that someone would be cavalier about it as well. So I do think that context, I think it's necessary context, assuming it's true. And I don't know if it's true, but that is what Blake alleges. And presumably that is something she would have shared with Taylor previously, because she mentions it here as if it's like something she had already shared before. Then later, Blake says he's being honored at the Vital Voices for Women event on Monday. Taylor says, this is so disgusting, and I hate that he's clever about this shit. Blake replies, This inspiring event celebrates men who are using their platforms, influence, and leadership to elevate women, combat gender-based violence, and promote gender equality worldwide. To be honest, I don't know what this little event is, but to me it sounds like, I don't know why we have this event. I don't feel like we need to necessarily be celebrating men who do that. Like, y'all should just do that. I don't know. That's just an aside from me. Anyway, and then Taylor clarifies, well, not him, her. And she's saying that was in her response to Taylor saying, this is so disgusting and I hate that he's clever about this shit. Then she says, well, not him, her. Now, who is the her she's referring to there? I'm assuming maybe like his publicist, Jennifer Abel, a woman he works with, right? Okay, so Blake says he's not. And by that, she means he's not clever. He just has a team. Yeah, her. And his publicist, Jennifer Abel. And the comms people at his studio. Taylor says he needs to be beaten by his own words. Blake replies, everyone weighs in before we respond. He responds to a text, writes an email, or trims his hair. It's wild. Everyone participates. Blake then goes on, yeah, I actually think it's important he's honored. And to all the people honoring him and not taking a moment to question, no one talks to him, no one will say his name, no one follows him, yet they all are close with each other. Maybe it was him. Nah, it was the women because they wore flowers. That's how you know. I think that text right there, very crucial. I'm not seeing enough people talk about that text right there. This is her saying basically to the public, how are y'all blaming me because I wore flowers, but not taking a good hard look at this man over here who everybody has unfollowed, nobody talks to, nobody wants to be around, but your conclusion is we're the problem because we wore flowers. And mind you, it did look problematic that they were focused on those flowers. Let's call a spade a spade. It did look problematic. Like, again, it's a movie about domestic violence. However, point taken, Blake. Taylor replies, Jesus Christ, is everything still on track? Blake responds, oh, yes, a week later, though. And to be clear, to me, it seems very clear they're referring to like the lawsuit that's pending and this New York Times article. I don't know what else they could be referring to here. I actually think, because I went and read some of the court documents, Blake disputes that that's what they're talking about here. I don't know, girl. But anyway, so Blake says a week later, though, but worth the wait. Taylor says, okay, that's perfect. His own words, that's going to be powerful. Blake replies, that's what's wild about this entire thing. Everything is in their own words. Taylor, it's the only way to beat liars and hypocrites. Blake, can you imagine feeling as confident as these predators that you're going to always get away with it? Him accepting an award as an ally for women and Scooter going about the world with his head held high as he co-owns and funds a crisis PR company that silences women right now? Taylor replies, it's like a horror film no one knows is taking place. Blake then says, oh, but they will. It's the only thing that can come of this, the good that protects other women from this happening to them. Meanwhile, I walk around feeling death sentence guilty and apologetic for being sarcastic and liking a theme party. And I again want to circle this text here. Because I think Blake has a point. She's saying, I'm over here feeling like a supervillain, death sentence guilty, because I was sarcastic in interviews and I enjoyed the idea of dressing up in flowers for these movie premieres. But he's literally harassing women on set, making women feel small and terrible, talking about porn, showing unsolicited photos and sexual photos, nude photos, improvising sex scenes and adding sex scenes when they weren't scripted, like making me feel uncomfortable, asking my trainer my weight, all of these actual things, like deplorable things, and he's being hailed, but I'm being dragged because I wore some flowers and I was sarcastic in some interviews. I do think she has a point, and I know the internet is going to hate to hear me say it. But at the end of the day, I keep coming back to what I have said before on this show and in other places. I think the story that Justin Baldoni is telling with these text messages, his timeline, his lawyer, all of these things. The story he's telling is that Blake Lively is unlikable and difficult to work with and power hungry and just generally not a cool person. Okay. All of that can be true. And none of that negates her claims. And I think that is just what gets buried, because you can absolutely walk away from all of this with the conclusion that Blake Lively is a terrible person who you would never want to be friends with and would never want to work with and would never want to have on your set, and still believe that she was sexually harassed and then was the victim of a retaliation campaign, an AstroTurf smear campaign. Both of those things can be true. And in fact, I would say it seems like both of them to a large extent are true. I don't know that I think Blake Lively is such a terrible person, but does she seem a bit unlikable? Yeah. These long ass text messages alone, I'd be like, girl, now we have got to do something about this. No, I kid. I don't mind verbose. I mean, for her, it does seem to be like over the top, but that's not reason enough to dislike someone. I just feel as though the things he is alleging do not disprove the things she is alleging. It's like he is just proving another case. The case of, is Blake Lively an asshole? I think if he took that case to court, he'd find 12 jurors to say yes. But that's just not what we're talking about here, which is why all of his lawsuits have been dismissed. We're talking about the law. We're talking about the law, okay? Not just the court of public opinion. And I feel like that really has been his focus. And I feel like that's what she's saying here. Like, I'm walking around feeling like I really am a criminal because I wore these flowers. Meanwhile, he did some actual criminal shit and people don't seem to care. And listen, it is giving that. It is giving that. And we've made it to the end of the text, the final one from December 21st. This is right after the New York Times article has been released. Taylor texts Blake and says, "You won. You did it." Then someone else who's on this thread, listed as Roy Orbison, says, "It's turning." Taylor posts a link to a Deadline article saying Justin Baldoni has been dropped by WME. She attaches a bunch of attachments. I'm not sure what they are. And then Taylor says, "And you fucking helped so many people who won't have to go through this ever again." Roy Orbison says, "Remember August?" Taylor says, "Never has a cancellation been reversed so fast. You guys don't understand how rare this is. To have proof and to take the perfect steps to bring that truth into the light." Blake says, "Ash, like, oh my God, like, my God." Blake says, "I love you so much. I would not be okay through any of this if it weren't for you." Taylor says, "Can you believe she just called and was like, this PR chick wants to get info to Blake. That means the world." Blake replies, "It changed my life." Okay, we have made it to the end of the text messages. And I have to tell you, I feel like I've been recording now for like an hour and we just not made it to the end of the text messages. It was important to me to read them all, important to me to interject with my thoughts as we went through. And let me just say this. I think from what I've seen from the internet, I've seen a lot of people, their interpretation of these text messages is Taylor's going down with the sinking ship. Like, this ship is sinking fast and Taylor's going down with it because she's a mean girl. Her career is over. And I have to tell you, that is not what these texts gave to me. Me reading them, it looked like, one, Taylor was being ride or die for her homegirl. And frankly, as someone who considers myself to be very loyal and very ride or die to my besties, I get that. It's giving that, first of all, it's giving shrewd. I think she was shrewd to point out, like, listen, strategically, this man was wrong to put my song in the trailer. Also, strategically, using his own words against him is going to be very, very smart, like very smart. That's going to be the right way to take him down. And also, I think just like a caring friend. You might argue the fact that she is such a caring friend to someone like Blake Lively, who does seem to leave a bit to be desired, as it relates to, charisma. Fine. You can make the argument. I've said it before. Taylor's choice in Friends often. Friends, lovers, often boggles the mind. Okay. So I'm not saying she's choosing the best friends. I'm saying as it relates to her, it looks like she is being a good friend to this person. That is my main takeaway as it relates to Taylor. As it relates to Blake, like I shared, I continue to think that the case she brought, because remember, the case she brought against Justin Baldoni basically is two things. One, he sexually harassed her. Two, he retaliated when she exercised her legal right to, file workplace complaints about the sexual harassment to get it to end. That was her legal right. And then she's saying he retaliated, which is illegal. That's her case. And so far, most of what he has presented against her doesn't actually negate the evidence that she has brought to support her claims. It doesn't negate the fact that there was an all-hands meeting with Sony executives and all interested parties to discuss the sexual harassment. It doesn't negate the signed letter addressing the harassment and the fact that, a set list of actions would no longer happen. It doesn't negate any of that. And as it relates to the retaliation, we saw the text messages between, the crisis PR firm saying things like, we can bury anyone, saying things like, it's a shame because people are so willing to trash a woman. Like we saw them orchestrating, saying we literally can bury anyone, working with Jed and other people, saying like we can get Justin Baldoni sending that message, basically saying like, oh, we need articles like this. We need articles like this that will show, Blake in a bad light. All of which supports the claim of retaliation. So I'm not a lawyer. I'm not trying to make their argument for them. The jury can decide whether or not they believe it or not. What I'm saying is there's very real evidence that Blake Lively has put forth. And a lot of what Justin Baldoni has put forth doesn't negate that evidence. It's almost like he just spins a completely different tale in order to say, yeah, but she's a bitch. She's a bitch. And so are we really going to let her take me down? Like, and she might be a bitch. She might be that. This is what I'm saying. This is what I wish more people would just like kind of critically think through. She might be that. And yet, under the law, she is still allowed to exercise her right to not be sexually harassed and not be retaliated against. She can be a bitch and still exercise her legal rights. Okay. So that's how I feel about all of this. And again, how I feel about Taylor is, to me, she comes across as a good friend looking out for her good friend. Are they still good friends now? I don't know because I haven't seen these two together in 2 years, it feels like, but they were then. And I think sticking up for your friend when she's going through a hard time, that makes sense to me. She clearly was getting a one-sided story. She clearly was only hearing the story through Blake's lens. So even if you are someone who thinks everything Blake said was a lie, you have to understand, well, then Taylor was only hearing the lies. She wasn't pinging Justin and be like, well, what's your take, sir? No, Blake was her best friend. So I think the people who are trying to be quick to rush to judgment against Taylor, it just doesn't make sense to me when like what we see here is someone sticking up for her friend, being a good friend. Wouldn't we all want a friend like that? I would. Maybe it's just me. Whew, y'all, we have been here for so long. I really wanted to get to the other things I meant to get to, but I have to go. I need to actually go check on my mom. I have an appointment. I'm late, okay? Luckily, she lives across the street, so I'm not that late. But I am late. I have got to go. We will get to the rest of the pop culture tidbits another time and the white news. I'm sure the white people will still be doing white people things next week. We will get there, and we will get to Olivia Dean's review. So sign up on the Patreon, and I'll see you next time.